The presidency that would not end. Donald Trump, political time, and the strategic corrosion of legitimacy. There are many ways a republic can be strained. Some involve tanks. Others involve courts. The more dangerous ones involve language. When Donald Trump refers to himself as the 45th, 46th, and 47th President of the United States, he is not proposing a coup, nor announcing a legal doctrine, nor even offering a plausible argument. He is doing something subtler and, in its own way, more consequential. He is disputing the very idea that political time is linear. In most democracies, time is the silent enforcer. Elections end things. Terms expire. Authority transfers. The calendar itself becomes a constitutional instrument. Power, once surrendered, does not linger, it passes on, ritualistically and without metaphysics. Mr. Trump's claim rejects this premise entirely. It suggests that power can persist even when office does not, that legitimacy can outlive institutions, and that defeat need not imply departure. It is not an argument about who won an election. It is an argument about whether elections are decisive at all. This is why the remark matters, not because it changes anything immediately, but because it reveals how American politics is beginning to think about itself. A presidency outside time. The modern American presidency is designed to be mortal. It begins abruptly, ends predictably, and is hemmed in by dates as much as by law. George Washington stepped aside precisely to demonstrate this finitude. Every president since, however reluctantly, has followed the choreography. Mr. Trump proposes a different model, a presidency that can be paused, interrupted, even stolen, yet somehow never extinguished. In this telling, Joe Biden does not represent a successor but an interregnum, an administrative anomaly occupying a space that rightfully belongs to someone else. This is not entirely new. Defeated leaders have often claimed injustice. What is new is the insistence on continuity, the idea that authority persists regardless of recognition. In international politics, such claims are familiar. Governments in exile make them. So do revolutionary movements. So do leaders who refuse to accept regime change. What they have in common is that they operate outside settled constitutional orders. It is striking, therefore, to hear similar language emerging within the world's most powerful constitutional democracy, the politics of suspended legitimacy. At first glance, this appears to be mere ego, an indulgence in grievance, a refusal to concede. But Mr. Trump's language has evolved. The election was stolen is an accusation. I am still the president is a worldview. The difference matters. The former invites redress, the latter denies finality. By asserting himself as the 46th president, Mr. Trump implicitly reframes the Biden administration as illegitimate not merely in outcome, but in existence. This moves the argument from electoral process to ontological status. The question becomes not whether rules were followed, but whether reality itself counts. Such framing is politically potent. It absolves supporters from accepting loss. It allows loyalty to persist without contradiction. And it transforms politics from competition into continuity struggle. Once legitimacy becomes personal rather than institutional, it no longer transfers cleanly. It must be reclaimed. Why institutions still hold, for now, none of this has altered the functioning of the American state. The armed forces obey lawful orders. The courts issue rulings. Budgets are passed, however grudgingly. Allies continue to deal with Washington, not Mar-a-Lago. The resilience of American institutions remains real. Predictions of imminent collapse are misplaced, yet resilience should not be confused with immunity. Institutions depend not only on rules, but on shared assumptions. They function because participants accept outcomes they dislike. The system is upheld less by enforcement than by consent. When a major political figure treats consent as optional, the system does not break, but it bends, and bending, over time, changes shape. The international audience, foreign governments do not interpret American politics emotionally. They interpret it strategically. For allies, the central question is predictability. Can American commitments be trusted across administrations? Will treaties survive elections? Will security guarantees endure ideological whiplash? Mr. Trump's rhetoric feeds existing doubts. If one administration is described as illegitimate by the next, or even by its predecessor, then policy reversals appear not as normal democratic change, but as moral correction that encourages hedging. European governments already speak more openly of strategic autonomy. Asian partners diversify security ties. None of this signals abandonment of America. But it does signal preparation for volatility. In geopolitics, even allies plan for uncertainty. Adversaries and the legitimacy dividend. For America's rivals, the benefits are quieter but real. Russia, China and Iran need not exploit Mr. Trump's statements directly. They do not require propaganda victories. What they seek is equivalence, the ability to argue that legitimacy is subjective everywhere. When American leaders dispute elections, authoritarian regimes gain rhetorical cover. They can point and say, truthfully, that even the West cannot agree on what authority means. This does not convince Democrats. But it resonates elsewhere, particularly in parts of the world where governance is already transactional and political morality elastic. In information warfare, the aim is not persuasion but confusion. Symmetry undermines superiority. America's strength has long rested not merely on power, but on moral clarity. When clarity blurs, influence follows. The military question that no one asks aloud, the most sensitive institution in any democracy is the armed forces. The American military's legitimacy rests on a single, uncompromising principle: obedience to civilian authority as defined by law. That principle has not been violated, but it has been rhetorically stressed. Repeated claims of alternative or overlapping legitimacy force military leaders into an uncomfortable position, not of choosing sides, but of reaffirming neutrality. Public reaffirmations are healthy in isolation. In repetition, they signal strain. No general is contemplating disobedience. No chain of command is fractured. Yet adversaries do not look for mutiny. They look for hesitation. In moments of crisis, over Taiwan, Ukraine, or the Middle East, clarity of authority matters. Delayed perception, not delayed orders, creates opportunity. Strategic vulnerability rarely announces itself dramatically. It accumulates quietly. Political time as the new battlefield. At its core, Mr. Trump's claim is about time. Democratic politics assumes that time resolves disputes. Elections settle arguments. Terms conclude chapters. History moves forward. Populist politics increasingly rejects this. It prefers recursion, grievances revisited, outcomes relitigated, victories remembered as permanent and losses dismissed as temporary. This creates a politics without closure. Such systems are emotionally sustainable but institutionally corrosive. They generate permanent mobilization, perpetual emergency, and endless claims of restoration. The irony is that this resembles the logic of revolutionary states, yet it emerges in a country founded precisely to avoid permanent revolution, not a crisis, but a condition. It would be wrong to describe Mr. Trump's remarks as a constitutional emergency. The republic is not on the brink. Power has not shifted hands irregularly. Law still governs, but it would be equally wrong to dismiss the episode as mere theatrics. What is changing is not the system itself, but the story Americans tell about it. A democracy in which losing does not end leadership is not yet an autocracy. But it is no longer a fully settled republic either. It exists in a liminal space, procedurally democratic, narratively contested. Such systems can function for a long time. But they are more fragile under stress. War, recession, or external shock tend to expose ambiguities that peaceful politics can ignore. The strategic cost of ambiguity. Great powers fear two things above all: unpredictability in rivals, and unpredictability in themselves. America's rivals can manage hostility. They struggle with inconsistency. If legitimacy becomes negotiable, then authority becomes contingent. If authority is contingent, then commitments weaken. And if commitments weaken, deterrence erodes, not because forces vanish, but because belief does. Missiles deter only if their use is unquestioned. In that sense, the danger of Mr. Trump's claim is not personal. It is precedential. It teaches future leaders that political time can be reinterpreted, that loss need not conclude, and that legitimacy can be asserted rather than transferred. Once taught, such lessons are rarely unlearned. An empire of confidence. America's global role has always depended less on coercion than on confidence that its system works, that its transitions are orderly, and that its word outlasts its leaders. That confidence has survived civil war, depression, assassination, and impeachment. It may well survive this too, but confidence, unlike law, is not self-enforcing. It must be renewed with each transition. It is strongest when boring. Mr. Trump's assertion of a presidency that never ended is many things: provocative, self-serving, theatrical. What it is not is boring, and for a superpower, boredom is not a flaw. It is a strategic asset. The quiet conclusion, the danger, then, is not that Americans will suddenly believe in three-term presidencies. Most will not. The danger is subtler, that enough people begin to believe that elections do not close arguments, that power does not truly pass, and that legitimacy is something one claims rather than something one inherits. When that belief takes hold, democracies do not fall dramatically, they drift, and drifting powers remain strong, until, suddenly, they are not. For now, the American presidency still begins and ends on schedule. The flags change. The codes transfer. The system holds, but somewhere beneath the ritual, a question lingers longer than it should: if power never truly leaves, can it ever fully arrive? That, rather than any single remark, is the strategic riddle Mr. Trump has placed before the Republic, and before the world.